says, where slaves are purchased to do our labor, numerous difficulties attend. To rational creatures, bondage is uneasy and frequently occasions sourness and discontent in them, which affects the family and such who claim mastery over them, and thus people and their children are many times encompassed with vexations which arise from applying wrong methods to get a living. So, the thing I love about a query is you don't just read it and say amen, you read it and you think about it. And when you think about it, then, wow, I need an action plan. So, as has been mentioned, this is the bicentennial of the documented, or one of the first documented actions of the Underground Railroad. So in 1819, John Denver's master was free. I mean, he died, and he freed John Denver. John Denver decided, New Garden. I heard about New Garden. I'm going to go to New Garden. So he comes to New Garden, he gets married, he works, he's in the community. But all of a sudden, the heirs of his former master decided, not so fast. Right? Imagine if grandma sells off that house and you've been waiting on, right? You wanted that house. You know, you wasn't wishing grandma a quick, whatever, but still, But when grandma passed away, please remember me, right? Well, apparently, his former slave master had an epiphany and decided that this man was human and that he should be set free, that he shouldn't be treated as property. And so so his heirs came to New Garden looking for John Denver. So John Denver, he told his wife, go get the coffins. Everybody knew, right? Go get the coffins. The coffins will help us. And sure enough, John Denver was spirited to the woods right across the street here. And eventually he made his way to Richmond, Indiana, where there was a Quaker community, and of course, where Urban College is today. This episode then encouraged the different farmers and the different people in the area to say, we should do more. We can do more. And so now we started the organizing. Then started the connections with people in Indiana, Ohio, even going as far as Boston and Philadelphia, going to people saying, look, at least send us money, send us finances, send us things that we can do to support this work. My brother, my sister, who share this testimony. We also want to talk about Benjamin Benson, which was another case that happened that once again encouraged this formation of this organized Underground Railroad. Benjamin Benson was a man who was on one of those coffles of slaves. And we believe that a man named Saul, better known as Hamilton Saul, he was as Levi Coffin calls him in his reminiscence, crusty old Negro that worked for General Hamilton, right? And this man would go and he would see the coffins coming down the road and he would ascertain whether or not people had been kidnapped. Now you say, what difference does it make if they're in chains, they're slaves? But Quakers also had integrity. And part of having integrity, you have to follow the law. Remember, slavery was the law. So the idea that you would go and take someone's property, there was no integrity in that. But if someone came to you, or if you saw that someone had been kidnapped, that's a different matter. And so they found out that Benjamin Benson was from Delaware. He was a free man. and he'd been kidnapped. Once again, go get the coffins. And the coffins found out about this. This man had been sold, and they, long story short, they were able to track this guy down. They were able to go to court, and they were able to free this man. Now, it took getting someone in Delaware, a white person in Delaware, to come and vouch for him. Once again, remember, if you were a person of color, of African descent in this country, you had no rights. You couldn't sue a person. You couldn't even testify in court as a witness. And so it took getting someone from Delaware to say, yeah, I know that guy. He's free. He's free. Let him go. And so that's what they did. So you're going to hear a whole lot more about this, so I'm just going to be really brief about where people were going. And as the young lady says, some people did go south. They went to Haiti, they went to other places, they went to Mexico. But for the most part, folks are coming through Greensboro. One of the primary routes would be to come through Greensboro, maybe go up the area what we now call 58, around Fancy Gap, into western Virginia, now West Virginia, into Kentucky, across the Ohio River, into Ohio to freedom. That was one of the primary routes. Or you could just keep going west, and you could just go through the mountains as well. And some people probably stayed in the mountains. Just had a conversation with a young lady. We were talking about the Junaluska community up in Boone. Black Mennonites, right? Who we believe some were going through that area, and they found it to be favorable, and they stayed. Right? Very interesting history, to say the least. So, you had the Underground Railroad, but then you also had, for example, you had the Manumission Society. The Manumission Society solicited support from other denominations, so Presbyterians, Moravians, others. They conducted a survey even. It said 60% of the state, North Carolina, favored emancipation. They printed anti-slavery material that appeared in the newspaper at the time, the Greensboro Patriot. They sent petitions to the legislature. Every year they would send a petition to abolish slavery and force it to fail. By 1826, there were 100 manumission societies with over 2,000 members in North Carolina and several female branches. Not sure why they had separate. So as we mentioned earlier, Levi Coffin was born in this area in 1798. We talked about when he was first exposed to slavery and the work that he began to do. He talks about when he would go out to the woods. It's one of the reasons why we have our Underground Railroad tree. We know this tree was a witness to some of the things that Levi talks about. And he talks about as a young boy going to those woods, taking his sack of corn, because you had to be, you had to be on the down low, you had to be slick about it, right? Because everybody knew, okay, those Quakers. They're trying to mess with our slaves, they're trying to mess with our livelihood, right? So he would go out into the woods under the pretext of, oh, I'm going to feed the hogs. Because back then, you just let the hogs run, right? When they go into the woods, just trust me, when you say suey suey or whatever you say, the hogs are going to come, right? They know it's time to eat, right? And they would come. And so he would do that. And so you see a little boy going out into the woods with a sack. You really don't, you figure everything's good. But in fact, he had corn. He had bacon. He had sometimes clothing or shoes. But most important, he had information. He had information and he had empathy. He would sit and he would listen to their stories. He would listen to the songs that they would sing. He would listen to, just how hard and cruel slavery was, to the point where it continued to encourage him. Wow, I must continue to do this work. But as I said, most importantly, information. How do I get to the next stop? So he would go and get that information, and he would share the next stop. So what I want to do real quickly is, and that's just a picture of the false bottom wagon at the Mendenhall home place, and one of the vehicles that they would use to get people to freedom, especially if you're traveling during the day. Most travel was at night. But if it was during the day, that's probably one of the only ways you could make that happen. This is a false bottom wagon. This would lift up. Folks would hide in there, but you got this on the top. So what I want to do, and this is the tree, nearly 300-year-old tree. I hope some of you will join us as we go out there later today. I also want to give a shameless plug for Pathway to Freedom. It's a play about the Underground Railroad, the history that we're talking about today. And I also want to encourage you all, we could use your support. We've been around for over 45 years, and we would love to do another 45, but we need to do a tremendous amount of work on our physical plan. And so if you feel in your heart to help us with that, we would appreciate it. So I just want to really quickly, before I hand it over to Dr. Israel, just a couple of themes and concepts about the Underground Railroad. One, it was an interracial movement. Okay? A lot of times, we get caught up in the Quakers doing their work. As much as we appreciate it, African Americans played a major role in gaining their freedom as well. For example, we know of the book by Hiram Hilty, a professor here at Guilford College. He talks about Arch and Lina Curry. Lina Curry was a washerwoman, and when Arch Curry, her husband, passed away, she would take those free papers and give them to people that would come here to New Garden boarding school, now Guilford College. And they would take those free papers, take them up to where Levi Coffin was, who moved from this area around 1826. And then he would send those papers back down by courier, and they would keep using those papers. We don't know how many people were able to use those papers, but they would do that. And then all the different stories, whether it's Henry Boss Brown or William or Ellen Craft, and of course we know the names of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and others. There was risk for everyone involved, everyone. One of the things, especially as a historian, how great would it be to find a list of all the sites, right? That's probably not going to happen. You had to keep it secret, right? So if you find that, it's an incredible thing, because you had to keep it secret. Sometimes one station didn't know what the other station was doing, and that was for their safety. When slave owners got enslaved Africans, they got people who had skill. And that's something that I have found to be very important to share when we talk about enslaved Africans. I generally go back and forth, but for the most part, I try to say enslaved Africans. It was something that happened to them. They were enslaved. We didn't go to the continent of Africa and find slaves. Right? Enslaved Africans came here with skill. When you think about, for example, the enslaved Africans in the Sea Islands of South Carolina, they were put there because they knew how to grow rice. They knew how to take saltwater marsh, turn it into a freshwater marsh, and grow rice. That's engineering. Okay. That's really important to know. Quakers also believed in integrity and that there's that of God in everyone. And that really was what pushed many Quakers who were involved in this work. Now, I think it's also important to note, not every Quaker was down with the Underground Railroad, right? Some people are like, I don't own slaves. Can I just be cool with that? But folks like Levi Coffin are like, no, you should be doing more. We talked about the ingenuity of the freedom seekers, like Henry Box Brown and others. We know about the spirituals as a code for instruction. It was beautiful yesterday hearing the young people singing, "Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd." What's the drinking gourd? That's right. And it's had the North Star in it, right? Or wade in the water. Right? Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. The spirituals were crucial. Not just as a form of uplift, but as a way to tell you where to go and how to go. As we talked about, the best time of day was at night. Some would say wintertime was a good time to travel, especially Christmas. Christmas sometimes was the only day you got off. That was the only day that you get a head start. There you go on Christmas Day. And if you're lucky, Christmas is on Friday. So you got 3 days. And we also know that Quakers tried different strategies. For example, here in Guilford County, many folks were that were manumitted stayed in this area, and we'll hear more about that. And many of them were protected because they were owned by Quaker meetings. Now, some of you say, okay, this guy just told me Quaker meetings. But you also heard me say that if you were a man of color, a woman of color, you had no rights, no matter how free you thought you were. Quakers understood that in order to protect people, they had to be property. And the beautiful thing about this is that we know this because there are deeds that have been digitized over in the county clerk's office that we can look and we see the names of the people, but knowing that these names, that these were people that did it for love, did it to protect, and not to try to make them work. People did whatever they wanted to do. I think that's probably all that I want to add today. And I hope that some of you will go on the tour and we can talk more. If you don't get to do the tour today, I was asked to share that we will be doing, especially since this is the bicentennial, over at Guilford College, we will be doing many more of these tours.